Turn this up. Got it.
Awesome. Welcome to Nerds with Friends podcast. I'm here with Kimberly Wilkerson. Very excited to have you on the podcast. And we're going to talk about your book today, Children of Grace, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, yeah, first off, let's hear all about that project. Tell us about it.
So Kingdom of Grace it's geared towards children's, although anyone can read it. I think parents would get a lot out of it as well, or even if you're not a parent, I guess. It's based on two separate kingdoms, and the main character, Queen Grace, is going through somewhat of a spiritual awakening, and both of the kingdoms are suffering from a drought and need to overcome that. And so it actually ends on a cliffhanger, and the second book to follow up on it will be out by the end of this year.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That sounds really cool.
Thank you.
I love bringing fantasy to a young audience like that. That's a really neat idea.
Yeah. So the whole point in my book, not only for my own, I guess, writing experience and getting it out there, out of me, out to everyone, is because I have a very deep understanding that we need to have more communication with our children. And I think that reading with them and actually talking about life experiences and things that they see is extremely important, especially right now. People need to really be speaking to their kids. Our kids are our future, and they see more than we give them credit for. And there's a lot, I think, that could be discussed out of the book and allow kids to ask questions and come to their own conclusions, do some critical thinking, and really, bond more with their parents, because we can't leave it to everybody else, you know.
No, that's brilliant. I love that. Encouraging critical thinking and building that bond through honest and important discourse. That's really great.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. Well, I wanted to ask you, when did you know that you wanted to become a writer?
People ask me that all the time. I'm like, I'm still learning.
That's a great answer.
So I've always written since I can remember. And honestly, like, I kind of forgot for many, many years because I went into the corporate world. And it wasn't until I got out of the corporate world, got sick, and was bedbound that I recognized my love for it, my desire to start journaling. And once I started doing something, honestly, like, it was divine. It was God that really pushed me back into it. And the more that I started doing it, and after I published, because it happened really fast, like, I just published, and I'm like, I don't even know what the heck I'm doing. And then everybody kind of surrounded me and was like, you've always journaled. You've been doing this since you were a preteen. And I'm like, oh yeah. And then divine stuff started happening, my mom brought over, stuff from my childhood, and I found journals that I had written in, all these things. And then just kept coming up, and I'm like, wow, where? So I started reading through them, and I'm like, I had a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's really neat. That's really cool. Sounds like you had a trajectory going for a long time, and you're finally riding the wave right now. That's awesome.
Yeah, I kind of understood Sleeping Beauty a little bit more because I felt like I had been sleeping for a really long time. But wow. I'm awake now.
That's so inspiring. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I love that. Well, let's see. What is the best advice you would give to an aspiring writer?
Honestly, just write. Whenever you can write, just write. Don't let anyone dictate to you what you should write, how you should write, what you should do with it. it'll come. It'll come. Like, ask the questions that you want to know, and just keep going. If what do you, I think the biggest question that anyone really should ask, I guess, would be, what do you want to get out of it? Are you writing for you? Are you writing for other people? Are you writing to become rich and famous? Like what is the purpose of your writing? If it's just to be a writer, then just write. Just do it. It doesn't matter where it goes or what comes of it. And if you're destined to be a big superstar, then that's what's going to happen anyways. So nobody can stop that,
Yeah.
That's my perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good advice.
Thank you.
I love it. Well,
What do you think? I mean, what would you tell someone?
I would tell someone just to start writing as much as they can, and just to fall in love with the process of it, because then whatever you choose to make of it, whether it's implementing it with work or anything, it's still going to be fun and fulfilling. So that's the advice I would give.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. Even in the corporate world, I was doing instructional design and just formatting and doing that kind of stuff. I was like, you know what? I'm helping somebody else learn something by the way that I'm putting this down on paper. So that fulfilled something,
That's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
I wanted to talk more about writing for a children audience. What's kind of the age range of your books that you write for?
I would say between 8 and 12. Okay. Although depending on the bookstore and how they categorize things, sometimes it gets pushed in different areas, especially because it's illustrated. So it might get put in like the picture books and stuff like that, which it's not really relevant for that, but I guess it could be, and then they could be it could be discussed based off of the pictures. But it can also go like preteen, teenager as well, like young adult. Yeah, but 8 to 12 most likely. And the second book, I think, I also think that it should be read along with parents, though.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Kind of an interactive between the parents and the kids. That's really neat.
Yes, yeah.
What were some of the challenges that you had writing for a younger audience than yourself? Because I've only written one time. I wrote an animated kids show for really young kids, like ages 3 to 4. And I mainly write for adults. So that was a big challenge for me, is to make sure I was really gearing it towards my audience. So what were some of the challenges that you had writing for an audience that's younger than yourself?
Well, first, I didn't recognize that I was going to write for children. In the beginning, I was just writing to get it out of me and kind of make an outline type of deal. And then I thought, oh, it's going to be like more of like a novel. And then it just kept morphing. And I've had, I think, more raising my son alone. I had more experience kind of being around a lot of kids and interacting with them and reading. I used to read to my son all the time, and that some of that time is probably the most precious that I hold on to. And like there's one of my favorite books it's a children's book, and I read it to my son so many times I can't even count, and I would sing the part to him, and he still knows it, like, so I'll still like sing it every once in a while, just this little part out of the book, just to make it special for him. And so I think that's kind of how it morphed, where I was like, you know what, I want to be able to have parents do this with their kids too, have real conversations, although it's not a book that you're going to sing,
Yeah.
It's more of a conversation. It's more of keeping open communication lines and things like that.
That's awesome. I love that. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, our next little fun question we have is, if your book's protagonist had to go on a road trip with the main character of the last book you read, how would that go and what would that look like?
Ooh. It'd be interesting, but I think the main character would win her over.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
She'd
awesome.
win her over. She'd bring her out of the dark side.
Okay. Nice. Very cool. And I think we kind of covered a bunch of the other questions about what kind of impact or legacy you want to have as a writer. I just really love that you're really about having kids have a discourse with their parents and kind of learn to exercise critical thinking and meeting them with the maturity and the cognition that they have and where they're at. I think that's really brilliant. I love that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying not to trip as I walk.
Oh yeah, especially because it's wet outside. Got to be careful.
Right. Yeah.
The last question we have, I wanted to talk about your writing routine. Kind of what does your typical writing day look like, or what are some things that you do to be in a better writing space?
Wow, that's a hard one right now because we're in a transition period. So my son is 17 now, and we're in a major transition. He's going to be an adult. He's getting ready to leave home. And so I've been focused a lot more on that than my own career. Yeah. And yet still trying, my time is really, really divided right now. And I took on more work over the holidays and things like that. And my schedule kind of went crazy. So I am not the best person to talk to about how well and how much time and effort you put into your writing, because I have not done enough. I can honestly say that.
It's so hard to balance with life, though.
Yeah, you know,
so
like
hard to balance.
we go on roller coasters through life, right? And right now it was just chaotic. And so when I'm on a good routine, on a good solid ground footing, it's in my schedule. I make sure it's in my schedule, and at least 3 to 4 times a week is devoted to writing. I also have I started back to school too. So
oh, congrats, that's awesome.
Thank you. So part of writing is in college. And so I've kind of like devoted more time to that for the time being, for the next few years, to college as opposed to my career, because it's I'm elevating myself in that regard in the same arena. If that makes any sense.
It totally does. Yeah, you're increasing your writing ability and your world experience and learning, and that's the perfect thing to do as a writer.
Right. Yeah. So this is my 4th time go around with college. So I'm just looking to keep adding on. Wherever you can add on is always good. Never stop learning. That's always a positive thing, I think, in anyone's life. Just Absolutely. To keep gaining more knowledge, whatever you can, wherever you can. Yeah. It's only going to benefit you. It's,
Oh, absolutely. Only going to benefit. Well, I was thinking, because your book sounds really good, and I'm going to definitely order a copy after this, because I want to see about the fantasy and the 2 different kingdoms and the drought and everything. That sounds really riveting. Have you ever thought about adapting it into like a TV show or a movie for kids to watch? Have you given that any thought?
I would love it. I've daydreamed about it. I've definitely daydreamed about it.
I don't know how to make it get there. But I also believe if it's meant to be, it will be.
Yeah.
And I think it would also need the follow-up book to be a full show or movie, because it is left on a cliffhanger, unless I adapted it into like a series type of situation,
Right.
which is possible, but I just haven't explored that yet.
Totally. Do you have anyone you think to cast for any of the big roles that you've daydreamed or imagined?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Like
awesome.
I you know, like if Candace Cameron, blah, blah, blah. You know who I'm talking about? DJ from Full House. Like
oh yeah, okay.
Okay, so if I forget her, she has a hyphenated last name, but if she were ever to see this and she was willing to be Queen Grace, oh my gosh, that would make my day.
Okay. When we release this podcast on Twitter, we'll tag her in it and see if she sees it.
There you go. Yeah. That'd be awesome.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, she needs to be Grace. I think she would be, I think she would be a really good fit.
That'd be awesome. Well, I hope it gets made, and I look forward to reading your book, and I really appreciate your time, Kimberly. This was great.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me. I love doing this.
Yeah, no,
I get to meet more people. You ask good questions, make me think more. Like, again, we got to use our critical thinking. We gotta expand our thought processes and just keep pushing forward.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was a really great discussion. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
For sure. All right. Okay. This has been Nerds with Friends podcast with Kimberly Wilkerson. And Kimberly, we'll make sure that we attach in the description all of your social media handles so people can follow you and find your books.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Oh, and just FYI to anybody who does make a purchase, 15% of all the royalties go back into the community services that myself and my son have received over time. Because I am a single mom, so I have had ups and downs, and we've all had those moments, and we've all had to ask for help from time to time. So it's always good to give back into our community.
That's awesome. That is so cool. I love that. That's
Thank
so
you.
great. Well, thank you so much. I'll definitely be ordering a copy, and I'm really glad to know that that my money's going to be going to benefiting a good cause. That's really great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time. I'm going to end the recording here.
Okay.